The Lincoln-Douglas Debates, 1858. The Dred Scott judgments deepened anxieties across the USA regarding the issue of slavery. By allowing every state government the ability to decide on slavery without federal intervention, slavery could now expand across the USA into the new territories and eventually the North. "A house divided against itself cannot stand," declared Lincoln in a speech in June 1858, using a quotation from the New Testament which he knew his audience would recognize. The speech followed his nomination as Republican candidate as senator for Illinois. Lincoln continued, "I believe this government cannot endure permanently half slave and half free. I do not expect the Union to be dissolved. I do not expect the house to fall, but I do expect it will cease to be divided." His opponent in the campaign was Stephen Douglas, up for re-election. The contest between them in front of large crowds in Illinois was to become the focus of the national debate over the future of slavery in the USA and the very future of the USA itself. Douglas quickly disagreed in a speech he made a few weeks later, with Lincoln in the audience. Douglas quoted Lincoln's view of the future of the USA in order to argue that Lincoln was advocating boldly and clearly a war of sections, a war of the North against the South, of free states against the slave states, a war of extermination to be continued relentlessly until one or the other shall be subdued and all the states become either free or become slave. The two men took their disagreements to the voters of Illinois. Between August and October 1858, there were 7 open-air debates between the two men across the state. Douglas, already a 2-term U.S. Senator and leader of the Northern Democrats, versus Lincoln, a 1-term congressman and runner-up to be the Republican Party's vice presidential candidate in 1856. Each debate lasted for several hours, and the most popular debate attracted about 15,000 people. Douglas accused Lincoln of having abolitionist sympathies and of believing in racial equality. Lincoln accused Douglas of being part of a Democratic Party conspiracy to nationalize slavery. Each accused the other of saying different things in different parts of Illinois. In terms of the Declaration of Independence of 1776, Douglas said it applied to white men only, while Lincoln argued it applied to all men, irrespective of color. Lincoln accepted that slavery was wrong while Douglas refused to do so. The Republican Party was united in its response to the Dred Scott judgments, but the Democrats were divided, with some, mainly Southern, members supporting the ruling. This left Stephen Douglas in a difficult position during the 1858 debates. He could not fully support the Dred Scott ruling due to its pro-slavery views, as that would cost him votes in Illinois, a free northern state. At the same time, he could not reject the judgments either, as he would lose the support of Southerners in his party. Douglas's challenge took the form of what became known as the Freeport Doctrine. He argued that the implementation of Supreme Court decisions rested upon local law enforcement, and that those local laws had to be decided by local people, not the Supreme Court. Only local people properly understood the local situation. It was his old idea of popular sovereignty in a new guise, and it meant in practice that slavery could not be imposed on any territory or state. Douglas even began to work with Republicans to oppose the congressional bill establishing the state of Kansas based on the Lecompton Constitution. The Democrats were now as divided over the issue of slavery in the territories as the Whigs had been in the early 1850s. Some Northern Democrats even left the party and joined the Republicans. U.S. senators at this time, and until 1913, were chosen by the state assemblies and thus only indirectly by the people. In the Democrat-dominated Illinois Assembly, Lincoln lost to Douglas, but had the consolation of winning more votes than the Buchanan Democrat candidate. The campaign and its debates attracted attention across the USA, helped greatly by detailed newspaper coverage. This made Lincoln, previously little known, a national figure. Over the next year he traveled widely across the North to widen his support, with a view to the 1860 Republican National Convention. During that time, An event occurred which greatly affected the national debate about slavery: the raid on Harper's Ferry.